Hello, welcome to a guest special of the Indie Author Mindset podcast. My guest today, I just saw her dancing on the monitor there while the theme was playing. We don't often have guests on the Indie Author Mindset podcast, but when we do, we like to have the same ones on within a few weeks of them last being on. And I'm joined this week by Sacha Black. Hello, Sacha.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure as always. You came on a few weeks back to talk about Ally's self-publishing conference, but you're here now in your own right to advertise something else quite exciting, to talk about your new book for writers, which I was an early reader on, and I'm very excited about too.
Yeah, The Anatomy of Prose is my latest book. So the whole title is The Anatomy of Prose, 12 Steps to Sensational Sentences. Shall I say a little bit about it, or?
Well, yeah, that's the whole point.
Okay. Okay, so the book is designed basically to give you a mini developmental edit. So although we are looking at sentence level craft, it is very much not a book about grammar and punctuation. I leave that very much to the Strunk and Whites, who's the lady who did the Eat, Shoots and Leaves, and those people who are the grammarians, or however you say it. This book is very much about story, and story at the sentence level, improving your prose, improving your sentences, improving your characterization at the sentence level. And we go into stacks of stuff across dialogue, description, your voice. What else do we do? Absolutely stacks and stacks of stuff. Anything that you could want to do better at the sentence level, I cover, as long as it's not grammar.
So it's not teaching people the musical notes, it's teaching them the flares and the little licks and riffs and ways to make the music sing more, I suppose, if you want to use that.
Absolutely.
Excellent. I mean, the reason it excited me is because I think so much of the focus in this industry is on advertising and marketing and how do I sell more books and how do I kind of use what I've already got. But I think it's often forgotten that one of the most important ways that you can actually build your career is to keep improving as a writer and to keep making your books better and better. And I think that's something that a lot of writers forget and think perhaps if you've got a book out there, you know how to write, you know how to do it. And that's not always strictly true, is it? I'll say probably never true, actually.
Exactly. And I think one of the myths and misnomers that come in around bettering your prose is that you have to write in a literary fashion. And that's absolutely not true. Each genre. Exactly. Each genre has very specific styles and expectations that the readers have. And my book absolutely acknowledges that and, encourages you to find your own voice. Like I know you, for example, from all the stuff that I've read of yours, you write in a very clean way. You don't delve into very detailed descriptions such as an epic fantasy writer might do. And that's absolutely fine. Either way, there are readers out there for writers who, in whichever style you write in. The book is designed to guide you through finding where you sit on that scale from, I suppose, clinically clean writing to purple prose, if you think of a better word, but, that spectrum. So, yeah.
And of course, if like me, you don't know any big words and that's why you write clean and tight sentences, then that's helpful too. I mean, how often, do you think there is just different types of prose? You think there is objectively poor prose that perhaps we all suffer from and can all improve?
Okay, so there is a chapter in the book that talks about mistakes in prose, and I open it by saying I am reluctant to write this chapter because I don't think there are any rules realistically that you have to abide by. Even the full stop isn't sacred. There is an award-winning book, and I think it's called Solar Bones by Mike McCormack, I think. Forgive me if I get that wrong. His entire book, 272 pages, is one sentence. One. Like, there are no rules. So
it's not Cormac McCarthy, is it? I know he's
that might be it. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so that's an example of where you can completely break the rules. But what often happens with newer writers is that they have crutches or habits, or they put things into writing that basically makes their sentences more vague or unclear, or they essentially don't convey the picture and the imagery and the action that they are wanting to convey. And so just some examples of that are things like filtering. So filtering occurs when the author puts in another layer of narration and a gap essentially between the protagonist or narrator and the reader. So it doesn't matter whether you're writing in third person or if you're writing in first person or anything in between, this filtering can still happen. So an example, when your reader reads, regardless of the point of view you're writing in, your readers need to see through the eyes of your protagonist. When you filter, you remove your reader from the body, I suppose, of your protagonist, and they stand to the side watching the protagonist do the action. Right. So filter words include things like she heard, he saw, I felt. They're unnecessary because though the actions of seeing and hearing and feeling are all inherent in the description. So an example, in the prose, she heard the owl hoot in the trees. You don't need the she heard because the action of the owl hooting creates the hearing action. So instead you would write the owl hooted in the trees. And that makes the action more immediate. Anyway. Exactly. And it makes the sentence more immediate, the action more immediate, and then you're putting your reader into the body and eyes and mind of your protagonist. So that's just an example of, it's not wrong, but it just makes your writing tighter.
Guilty as charged on that one. I'm definitely a he felt, she felt, they heard writer, without a doubt.
I think there you go.
Well, by the way, you're talking about writers who break the rules and don't use punctuation and things like that. So just to quickly pick up on that, I read literally in the last couple of weeks actually of a book which very much breaks all the rules, Blindness by Jose Saramago. And
Ooh.
Any of his books are brilliant, but no punctuation, no dialogue, anything like that. Very confusing, but almost meant to be when you think about the subject matter. It's
tell me the name again.
As Blindness, or any book by Jose Saramago. Depends which translation you get, but they're all pretty good.
Okay.
In terms of prose itself, we were talking about making sentences more immediate, allowing readers to connect with your books much more and infuse them. And it's not just about that direct reading experience, is it? I mean, if we want to talk about it from not from an artistic, fluffy point of view, but from a business point of view, having readers more enthused about your writing, more excited about it, means that, put bluntly, when they get to the end of the book, they're more likely to go and buy another one of yours, or to join your mailing list or your Facebook group, or follow you on Twitter and tell their friends about you. It's good business sense, isn't it, to make sure in any business you're in that your product is as good as it possibly can be, so that people rave about it and want more.
Exactly. And the thing that I think a lot of writers forget is, if you're improving your prose, you are also improving your ad copy and your marketing copy and your emails that you're sending. So not only are you're getting like a 2-for-1. It's like a super bargain. How could you not want to do this?
Well, we're talking about business strategies.
Exactly. But yeah, by improving your prose, you are also improving your skills with marketing, your marketing vocab, your marketing emails, sentences, whatever, all of the copy that you put on your BookBub ads or your KDP ads or wherever. So yeah, you aren't, by improving your prose, you aren't just improving your prose, you're improving your whole ecosystem around your book sales.
Yeah, I think what was quite interesting for me, and even having read the book already, each time you sort of talk about things that writers do wrong, I'm realizing that I'm doing these things wrong. What are some of the other things that you think a lot of writers, perhaps a majority, or anybody who's listening to this, you might think, well, actually, I'm quite a good writer. People tell me my books are great. What are some of the things that you could possibly predict they might get wrong and actually aren't, perhaps there are improvements that are always needed?
So one quick trick with characterization is, most writers, when you introduce a new character, the protagonist or narrator will describe what they see. They'll describe the eye color or the hair color or what they're wearing. Now, yes, That's important. It's interesting. But at the end of the book, does anyone really remember what a character wore or what colour their eyes were? Probably not. Can you tell me what colour Sherlock Holmes' eyes were? I don't think so. So
I've redeemed myself on that front then, because I've genuinely never described a character unless I've needed to. If, for example, the fact they had long blonde hair became relevant somehow to knowing that they were the killer, or what just literally just made that one up. But
yeah.
Otherwise, I never describe the characters at all. And you know what? I get so many emails and messages from readers saying, "Oh, your characters are so vivid. I can see them in my mind's eye." And I wonder if that's because I've allowed them to create what they look like rather than forcing my description on them.
Quite possibly. And so the second half of this trick is to avoid describe. No, that's not true. Of course, you can describe the description and the visual aesthetics if you want to. But what connects a reader to your characters, and this might be what you're doing, is to describe the impact the character has. So when this new character comes into your scene, how does your protagonist feel about them? Do they give them butterflies, good butterflies? Do they come in and does your protagonist shudder? Is there something that puts them on edge? Another trick, rather than just describing how your protagonist feels, is to describe the impact this new character has on another character in the scene, and your protagonist watches that impact. And that also will both tell your readers about your protagonist and what they pick up on, and whether they're empathetic or the details that they see and deem important. And it will also tell your reader about those two characters, the fact that one character is feeling whatever the character's feeling, and the fact that the new character coming into the scene is having that impact on the character. So when you describe the impact of a character, that is far more effective at connecting readers to your characters and also creating description.
I mean, in terms, I think, as well, of getting their personality and their style and their impact across, a lot of that can be done in the dialogue too, the way they speak. I remember one of the old tips that I remember reading in a craft book, might have been in more than one, I don't know, is that you shouldn't need to tell the reader who's talking. You shouldn't need to say so-and-so said or this character replied. It should be pretty obvious from what they're saying which one of them it is, if they're distinct enough in their personalities.
Well, that's it. And that is one of the most common questions I get asked. How do you differentiate your characters, especially in dialogue? And actually, I think it's one of the easier things to do, because your character's personality is their voice. Yeah. Much like, an author's isn't, because our voice can change over genre, it can change over the lifetime of our career, but your character is consistent, even though they have a character arc throughout your book. So, for example, if you have a stuffy professor as a character, they're still going to be a stuffy professor at the end of the book, regardless of whether or not they've had some life change and they've had some character arc. So, for example, in the dialogue, they might be more inclined to use words like furthermore, however, in conclusion. These longer words, they might have longer sentences with more punctuation. Whereas if you had a gang member, then actually they're probably going to use shorter words, shorter sentences. They might even have made up words that are unique to their gang and their gang culture. So by looking at your character's personality and allowing that personality to influence the sentence level choices that you're making, you can augment and heighten your characterization.
So I guess the top tip there would be know your characters. I think for me, one of the things that's really helped me in my characterization and dialogue actually is my background in acting as well. Being able to actually be the character as you're writing them and letting them kind of talk through you and all of that and really get into their mind, that can help quite a lot. So that might be something that the authors want to do, perhaps explore their characters a bit more, get to know them, rather than thinking, oh, what would they say here?
Absolutely.
Let them talk through you.
It's funny you say about your acting days. I know that's something we share in common, and I definitely talk about Stanislavski in the book. Stanislavski was like an actor, come director, come writer, and he has some excellent lessons for us all to learn.
Yeah, when we talk about method acting, it's the Stanislavski method is what's being referred to there, isn't it? So
yeah.
Okay, so The Anatomy of Prose, it is out now, and I've been waiting a long time for it. You've been talking a long time about it. A lot of people have been asking me about it for quite some time. It's out now, ebook, paperback, audio on its way as well.
Yeah, it's also in hardback and the audio. So the reason I have a very bare office is we are just about to move house, and we are building an audio booth in my new office. I have stolen the dining room so that I have a large enough office to build an audio booth in there. And I will be recording all of my nonfiction actually into audiobooks throughout the rest of the year. So probably fall, late fall, definitely by the end of this year, the prose book will be out in audio.
And they're definitely bare walls. If you're watching this on the Indie Author Mindset YouTube channel, you can see there. Normally, I know when I speak to you, Sacha, you've got bookcases in the background, much like I have, except rather than the conventional, sensible method of putting them in alphabetical order, you organise yours by colour because you're a maniac.
It's a rainbow, darling. It's fabulous.
Well, I'm going to put the links in the show notes to the book as well. And I know for the Indie Author Mindset Patreon members, you're going to put together a little guide, I suppose, cheat sheets, I suppose, for want of a better word, on ways that you can quickly improve your prose, and some extra takeaways there for the wonderful Patreon folk. I'll put links to get the book as well in the show notes to this episode. So anybody who wants to go and get that, and they absolutely should, it really is a cracking book, and I don't say that lightly. But thank you very much for joining us this week.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
This episode of the Indie Author Mindset podcast was presented by me, Adam Croft. The Indie Author Mindset podcast is sponsored by Ingram Spark, helping you get your book into over 40,000 bookstores and libraries worldwide. Get started today at ingramspark.com. The theme music for this podcast is by the Caesareans. Don't forget you can claim 50% off any Indie Author Mindset course by entering the promo code podcast at the checkout. Links are in the show notes. For more great tips and guidance, join the Indie Author Mindset group on Facebook.